Welcome to Beers with Bill tonight. I'd like to welcome Marvin Dyck, the head brewmaster at Wellington Brewery, back again, and looking forward to our talk about the 4 collaboration beers.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So Marvin, talk to me about the first one that we're doing, the Coffee Cream Ale Lifts All Boats.
All right. So yeah, maybe I'll talk about the overall theme just briefly first. So like they do kind of all line up. So it's the Rising Tide collaboration mix pack. So the whole idea for it was for our 35th anniversary, which was this year. And we had this project designed like last fall. So before COVID even was heard of in China, we were already planning this. It was going to be a big year, big cast fest, all that sort of stuff. So we actually were well on our way. We came up with the theme because, again, 35 years is a fairly long time in any sort of world, but in the craft beer world. And I remember going to a craft brewers conference in Denver, and the keynote, it was just a really powerful speech. And he used that phrase, which is a common phrase, that the rising tide lifts all boats. And he used it in the context of like, we're all small craft brewers. We can't do this on our own. The only way we can compete with the big guys or even carve out our own niche is to do something different and to support each other. So the rising tide, being craft beer, is going to raise all boats, and we have to look out for each other. So it's just that concept of collaboration, community, but it really, really in that one sort of phrase. So that's where a lot of the artwork and Gord did a fantastic job on that. So yeah, they all have a different message. So there's the rising tide, come and float, join together, and whatever the one we're drinking is, lifts all boats. So that's where the overarching theme went. And so we just, I mean, there's so many breweries, we had to pick a few. So we just reached out to some of the older ones, the ones that are really recognized as trailblazers and that have been around for a while. Some of them we have really good relationships with. So yeah, we'll talk about them as we go through, but we'll start with the Coffee Cream Ale. So again, this was pre-COVID. We actually got to go up to Muskoka. I met with Gary, the head brewer up there, had a great chat with them, and they really wanted to tie into their history as well. They've been around, since the early 90s, I think. And their cream ale was one of their original flagship beers. So, and we had our special pale ale, which I don't know if any of you, probably some of you remember, we actually used to brand it as a cream ale. That was when it was in bottles. So like I started in 03 and it was still called a cream ale then. Now it wasn't really technically, because cream ales, like you want to have some corn in there, a little flake corn, very clean ale character. So we were kind of already bordering on not being a cream ale. So we kind of ditched that whole direction. But for dealing with Muskoka, we're like, okay, let's use that malt body, but then do a twist. So we decided to go with the coffee. There's a lot of dark coffee beers out there, but not a lot of lighter ones. So I've had a few coffee blonde ales before. We thought, all right, let's try it with this. So, I mean, it's a very naked beer, I'd say. Like there's not a ton going on, but it's just a clean, crisp taste. And then we added the cold brew coffee into it. So it really, I'd be interested to hear what you guys think, but I get some really interesting flavors off it. Almost a pepper kind of vegetal character from the coffee. And again, you guys all know, like coffee is, oh yeah, and there's honey. I forgot to mention the honey. There you go. Somebody put that in there. So honey malt as well as some actual honey. Usually when you use actual honey, it's really hard to get that flavor to come through because it generally ferments. Depending, you can add it at the end, but again, you don't get a lot of flavor. So what we did was we used a fair bit of the honey malt, which does have a honey flavor to it. So that adds another kind of twist to it as well. But yeah, I was it's kind of an interesting beer. It's one that is maybe not as exciting as some of the others, but I enjoy it as kind of like a go-to, interesting beer. So that's my take on it.
I'm enjoying this one. The coffee hits me right off the top, and then everything else just follows underneath it.
Well, and it's totally different because most of the dark beers with coffee are also getting coffee notes from the malt. So you get that from chocolate malt, from black malt. So it kind of accentuates it, and it leads more towards the roasty side of coffee, where this you're getting, like, I don't know if you've ever read those coffee bags and you're like, you know, notes of gooseberry and blueberry. And like, there's always these tasting notes with coffee, but depending on how you make the coffee really matters whether or not you get those notes out of it. So I would say this is really showcasing the coffee. I believe it's an Ethiopian blend. And yeah, so it's really neat. We got it from Planet Bean. We've worked with them a lot. And yeah, kind of a neat beer.
Yeah. And Naomi, you are getting caramel on the back of that. It's one of the very light tones coming through at the finish. So, but yeah, it's smooth. It's easy. It's I'd almost go. This is almost a perfect patio beer for me.
It won't get all light struck because there's not a ton of hops in it. It's more showcasing other flavors.
Yeah. So we talked yesterday a little bit. As winter is approaching, what changes are going to be happening at Wellington?
So we made the move. We shut our patio down Thanksgiving. So we had it open for the latter half of the summer. We decided, you know, there are some days that are still okay, but it's not a huge driver for us. And there are people that enjoy it and that, but it's we're not like a huge spot where people come to for that. So we do have our tap room, but we've decided to actually keep that closed for the winter, for the foreseeable future. Again, with the mindset that like just for our employees' safety, mostly, like we have to really amp up the protocols and safety if we have the public there. And I think like we did a good job with the patio, but even being indoors is even more. And we kind of use the tap room like we always have, like staff goes in there. It's kind of an employee area as well. So it's really hard to separate the two. And really for those restaurants that are operating and want to do something like that, we'd rather not really compete with them at this time. It's going to be hard enough. I should have mentioned that's what we actually decided for the charity element of this pack. So there's actually, we're donating back to savehospitality.ca, which is a foundation set up to just try to help out the restaurant industry because it's hurting so much. So that was kind of an interesting thing. We obviously didn't plan that from before COVID because we didn't know about it. So our initial thought was we were going to try to partner with like a water conservation benefit of some sort. Muskoka kind of already did that though. I don't know if you guys saw there, they had a 6-pack called a survival pack, I think. And they partnered with a water charity. So it's great they were doing that. So it's like, okay, we're going to find a different angle. So this ended up being the avenue we did. But yeah, so the other thing we're going to do over the winter, this was actually on our list again from pre-COVID. We renovated our retail. It was all planned. We were going to put the patio in and put in a proper door. So an accessible door. This has been on the list for a very long time. With the expansion, it just kind of gone down. So right now there's only like one door kind of in and out of our retail. So we want to be able to create a flow, obviously let people come in, customers into just the retail area. We can kind of make it so that we can limit the number of people, but also they can come out of the cold and shop, browse, but we can still do everything safely that way. So that's the big change. We're going to put in this extra door, which if you've been to the brewery is where the Welly walk-up window is. So that walk-up window will disappear. There will be a door there so you can enter. We'll kind of move all the tables and that to the other side. And yeah, then you can go out the old door basically. So I think that's what we're working with right now. So for the winter, we're going to bunker down. We're going to keep the other things. We're going to do December again. We have a great lineup planned of different beers. The UVB series is coming back for the 3rd time, or is it 4th now? think it might just be third. I don't know. I can't remember, but it's great. There's 4. There's always the standard, just straight bourbon barrel aged version, but then there's 3 new flavored versions that are pretty exciting. So, and artwork again is crazy. So that's kind of some stuff to look forward to over the winter.
That's great. That's great. I agree with Graham. This is just a fantastic idea about the doors and supporting the local restaurant trade. And it's really admirable that you guys are doing that. Looking forward to the new beers coming out for the winter. So,
yep. Cool.
We'll have to make sure we keep track of that when it happens. So next week, I'm cracking my Imperial Stout that's down in the cellar with Keith. He's on next week.
Oh, nice.
So, yeah. So what's been the biggest single challenge over the last 6 months?
Yeah, you asked me that last night, and so I've had some time to reflect on it, and it's I don't know. There's a couple different ways I can go. So the thing that really just popped into my head, I think, is the biggest challenge has been to not use COVID as an excuse for life, basically. So what I mean by that is, like, it's not that it's obviously affected everyone a great deal, and it's been a huge challenge. But how do we rise above that without just blaming it on it? So how do we come out of this stronger and not make that an excuse for why I didn't meet a deadline when I really could have, or why I didn't really care about the environment when I really should, because we are going to get through this and the planet is still going to be here, but maybe it will be in worse shape than it was. So I think that's kind of been what I've been reflecting on, like how can we keep just living our lives through this, being cognizant of it, but also rising above it, again with the theme of, you know, the rising tide lifting the boats. Like, the tide feels like it's very low right now, but it is going to come back the other way. So yeah, I think that's been one of the biggest challenges, that, and just the level of information, like trying to figure out the truth on issues, right? Like, there's so many different opinions out there and different sides that are really fighting, and just being able to be open-minded and have conversations with people, and just, again, to acknowledge that we are all dealing with this, but how can we do it in a loving manner to our fellow humans, and really you know, just still live our lives. So anyway, that's sort of a roundabout answer, but that's where my mind's been going, and it's a great thing to reflect on, though, right? This is not something that's just going to magically disappear all of a sudden. So we still need to continue, I think, to reflect on it and to push ahead.
Yeah, there is another side to this. Like, it is going to end, but
Yes.
It's not going to end quickly, and we all need to be there for each other.
Yeah,
I totally agree with that. David asked an interesting question. Who did the branding for the pack this time?
it's still Gord, our in-house graphic design artist. So he's done everything over the last while. So yeah, and what's interesting with him is he really, like, he has his own style, but sometimes he, like, what he does is just so different that you almost can't tell he's the same artist. Like, the faces cans, like, they have their own kind of theme, that's him, but then these have their own sort of look to them too that are very different. Yeah, he's just a phenomenal. And then he has all the Cast Fest with, like, the Cast Buddy. I don't know if you've seen that kind of pop around different places, kind of cartoony. So, like, yeah, he's very talented, and I got to preview actually his UVB art for, like, the one coming up in November, and I basically, my only comment was, like, really, Gord, I mean, when you think you can't outdo yourself again, like, it's incredible, like, just the detail, and yeah, like, he's an amazing artist. So
Mandy wants to know if you know his Instagram handle.
oh Oh, now you're challenging me. I'm very,
We'll
very
get
bad
that
at
later
this.
on. We don't need it right now, okay?
I will find it. Yeah, I can definitely find that.
Yeah.
Just put it in the chat at some point. No worries.
So I'd like us to at least talk about the next beer that we're gonna taste out of this pack. So
Oh,
you're gonna do the grab the wrong one. We're gonna do the West Coast Pale Ale next, are we not?
That's correct. Yes.
Yeah. So Rising
So-
Tide.
In general, the way I like to taste beer, we do this on our sensory panel too. I mean, there's a few common things most of you probably know, like you want to go lighter to darker, less hoppy to more hoppy, not sour to sour. But then, you get some competing things in there. What about a hoppy sour? Like, where do you put that? Well, that would be probably at the end. But like a dark hoppy beer. Anyway, so that's how we're kind of moving through this pack. But yeah, let's see. This I partnered with Great Lakes. So this is the only one we actually got to do a pilot brew in person of. We did it right at the beginning of March. So Mike Lackey came down. We actually got to brew together. We talked about the recipe, did the pilot. I sent them samples of it. He gave feedback, and then we came up with the final recipe. So this one is really meant to be that West Coast Pale Ale, kind of in the vein of Sierra Nevada Pale Ale, all those great legacy beers that really got me onto hops in the first place. Even like Canuck from Great Lakes, some of those early beers, Optical Illusion, Tank House. So not over the top on the dry hop. There will be definitely hop nose, but you're looking for more the pine kind of resiny sort of hop character, and on the palate, on the mouthfeel, it's going to be fairly bitter, like on purpose. That's how this style really came about. But it's kind of like a cleansing bitterness, so it's a really good one to pair with food. Yeah, I find it very thirst quenching myself, but
I got the resinous pine like right immediately.
yeah,
So
it's maybe not for everyone, but it's if you like these kinds of beers, then it's yeah, for me it's very nostalgic. It's very it really takes me back to I was going to say my childhood, but not actually my beer childhood.
takes me back to 3 when I stole my dad's beer.
I didn't have my first beer till I was 22, actually. So
Yeah. No, that's an interesting complexity of flavors in there.
yeah,
And smooth to boot on top of that.
yeah, there's just a touch of crystal malt in it, very low. I think it's only like 6%. So very, you would typically get the caramel off there, so it's kind of there, but the hops really compete with it a fair bit, so it's very subtle in the background.
Mm-hmm. You getting more comfortable making this style of beer?
Yes, yeah, it's I don't know if I mentioned that before, but yeah, I wasn't allowed to brew hoppy beers for quite some time. That was just not the direction that Wellington was going, and so it took some time to get more comfortable with it. And yeah, now I really enjoy making them, and all different IPAs really. The Faces has kind of become my baby. I like the challenge of making a double IPA, I think, because it's like I've messed it up before, and it's like but that's always good. It's good to make mistakes and learn from them. And but yeah, and then the subtleness, I think the next challenge is to make like a really good low alcohol hoppy beer, and that's really tricky as well. So one of my co-brewers, Jeff, he's done a lot of work on that. So we're going to actually be releasing a few of those over the next few months. Like we're just around the 4% range to really try to get the notes of an IPA without being smashed.
Yeah.
Generally, they're higher in alcohol. This is not crazy though, right? I believe this is 5.6. I don't know.
I was looking at the can at 5.6.
Oh, I was right. Good. It's not even the right can.
Yeah. 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 No, it is tricky to get a lower alcohol and get the balance in the hops at the same time. Now, by the way, Naomi, that is so grade 9. Just see it. Sunny D? Oh, please.
Oh, Sunny D.
And from a sippy cup, Derek? Oh, you're really being cruel. So Mike's asking, there's been a real push the last 2 years for tropical East Coast Australian, New Zealand beers that are fruity and low IBU. He's enjoying seeing the quality of a West Coast brew.
Thank you.
So,
yeah, they really went out of fashion, and it's partly why. And I've got a bit of flack from this from different people, but Upside is not really a true New England. Like it has more of that. It's more of a hybrid, really. In all honesty, like it's got a bit of that West Coast. I tried to really walk a line with it. Because it's kind of what I want to drink too, but I also know there's a huge market for the really juicy New England ones. So it's like, yeah, I got to be aware of that and what's going to pay the bills and people are going to buy. But that's why a pack like this was just awesome to be able to do this beer the way I wanted to do it. And then like we're going to get to the Kvike, which is really, even though it's the Norwegian yeast, it's really more in the vein of the New England style. So
I know the young lady at the LCBO in Stratford was, because I walked by it, didn't see it. And so she showed me the pack and she's so excited. She says, I can't wait. And she goes, I can't wait to get to the very last one, the sour.
Oh, yeah.
So I know there's a fair amount of excitement with people around the 4-pack.
Yeah, and so that was one of the issues we've had. So a few things. It's not selling probably as well as our other packs. So we've actually, just in all complete transparency, we've been looking through it and trying to evaluate like what is kind of the issue with it. And one of them seems to be is like people are just missing it. So lovely artwork and branding, but it's like yeah, like people are just, there's somebody else saying 7 laps. Yeah. So it's not kind of standing out. It's also like our branding is on it, but you probably wouldn't know it's Wellington until you really pick it up. Right. So,
yeah.
And that's not like a huge like problem. We're just trying to evaluate, okay, like, and it was also releasing it in August, which is weird. We've never actually released something in that. We do our mix pack. Usually there's only 2. So there's actually going to be 3 this year, including this one, but it was sort of this bonus one that we thought, oh yeah, people are going to enjoy that. But I don't think people are understanding that it's actually our mix pack, right? So again, these are things you learn over the years. You can be in business for 35 years and still not get it right. So we would do things probably differently if we released it again. But again, I'm super happy with the beers. There's no issues on the quality of the beers. I love them. It's just more trying to let people know that it exists and go try it. But it's a problem if you can't find it. So,
well, unlike Graham, I actually asked. It was like, I've walked through here and I'm sure I've seen it. It didn't register.
No, I know. Because the other ones all kind of, the artwork changes a little bit, but it's like, they're very recognizable. They're in a series basically.
Yeah.
Oh, somebody got it in the box, the Canland. Sweet. I still have not played that game, mostly because I don't have anyone to play it with. My kids are, I mean, I guess they could drink like pop or something, but it's kind of awkward if you're the only one drinking beer. Yeah.
We haven't had time. We have a 1-year-old, so It's hard to find
Yeah.
time to actually play, but we'll get there.
Yeah. Oh, I hear you. Ours is
Yeah.
9 months, so yeah, no time.
So Mike did raised another point too, and that is that people that don't like hoppy beers usually they don't really like bitters. The problem, and
Right.
and of course we've had that cycle of right in your face over the top hop beers, and we're now moving back into a cycle of more balance to it, which is good to see. So
It's interesting. It's like so many things in life, right? It's a pendulum. So like it swings into one way, and then it'll come back. You'll go to the really high alcohol beers, and then it'll swing back to the more balanced. Like we've even found that with well, probably the classic example is the Arkel Best Bitter. So like we discontinued it for a while, kind of went out of favor, brought it back with COVID. It started selling like crazy. So we actually, from a brand that basically disappeared, we are now considering it again one of our core beers. Now it's not in like the LCBO full time, but it's like it's just around enough. We sell it through our retail, and if people want to get it, but again, it's a 4% easy drinking beer, and people are more educated these days. They know that a best bitter does not mean that it's a bitter beer. So
yeah, see, my favorite style of beer for a long time was malt forward brown ales. And you couldn't get them anywhere. They fell out of favor. They just didn't exist. And then all of a sudden, in like a 3-month period, there were like 9 of them out in the market. So it runs in cycles. So.
cool.
Derek, I enjoyed the cast box of Darkel. Is there any chance we're going to do that again?
Yeah, I was going to ask if anyone had actually got it. So, yeah, I can let you guys in on the secret. We're going to do county next. So, they are a huge pain to fill. So, but it had such a great response that we are going to do county hopefully in the next couple weeks. So yeah, just stay tuned because it will probably sell out. We just don't have the capability to do them in mass quantity. So we'll do, whatever, 100 of them again, probably. And they'll sell out pretty quick. But I was really impressed with the quality that the bag held. So these are very different than what the original ones were. They were a much harder kind of PET kind of plastic. So they didn't like suck in on themselves. So they would suck air back in and go bad really rapidly. Again, you got to QC these things. I actually had a box and I kept it for a week. And so like every day I would take a little sample out of it and try it. And like the quality stayed way longer than I expected it to. And then I would open it up and look in it. But basically it's not letting air back in. The bag is just collapsing because it's such a thin plastic. So it was maintaining that airtight environment. So, I mean, if it were easier to produce these things, it's actually not a bad package to sell beer in, but don't tell anyone else that. So.
Okay. We're going to move on to I can't even pronounce it properly now, the IPA.
Yeah, so this is an interesting, you guys have probably heard it. So I always said Kvike, kind of pronounce it that way, but I think you're actually supposed to say Quike. So like you pronounce Quike in Norwegian. So this is basically the resident strains of yeast that are found in Norway. So the farms all have their own strain that's very unique to their farm. And what you're supposed to do is actually, and I don't know if we actually did this on this, is identify which strain of Quike it is. So this is Hornindale, I believe. So it's from that farm in particular, and that's the farmer's name. So you can also get Evergarden and all sorts of different farmhouse Norwegian strains. So they isolated these fairly recently. Now the farmers have been using them for hundreds of years, but these strains of yeast are really cool. So they can ferment up to, they have a huge temperature range and alcohol tolerance. So this one I actually fermented at 35 degrees. So most of you probably know beer fermentation. Lagers are typically in the 10 to 12 degree. Ales 20 to 24. 25 is really pushing it. If you go higher than that, you start getting some really weird esters, and you stress the yeast out, and they do not like it. The Quake, it'll ferment even, some of them will ferment up to 40 degrees. But this one, I just set the temperature at 35 and just let it go. And it's really neat. So it produced some interesting fruity esters that are coming from the yeast. Now it is heavily hopped as well, but you're going to get some really nice, like as soon as you pour it, like I can just smell it coming off. So there's a lot of different like kind of stone fruit, and then there's oh, it's just like luscious fruit salad, and a little bit there's some Amarillo hops in this, some Simcoe, so there's a little bit of that, like little bit of dankness in there from the hops, but it kind of balances along with the stone fruit. And yeah, I was kind of excited to use this strain of yeast. I've done it on a couple smaller batches, but this is the largest I've ever done, and it was pretty interesting. So this would lend itself more to the hazy side. Fair amount of hops, but not super bitter. Most of them are like towards the end. There is some bitterness there, obviously, as there will be, but yeah, a lot of it is a heavy dry hop. Any thoughts on this beer?
I'm still analyzing it.
Yeah, no, I'm rushing people.
Alex, overripe plum on the nose.
Oh, yes.
Now that he's pointed that out, that's the smell I was trying to picture. I couldn't quite get it.
That's why I love tasting with a large group of people, because somebody will have that one descriptor that just nails it.
Mm-hmm.
And it actually, like, it'll change as the beer ages. So this has been in the market for a little bit now. So there would have been two different batches. So I don't know if what date people have. I have the first batch, which was August 4th. So it's now like 2.5 months old. So again, those flavors are going to develop over time. The hops will fade out a little bit, but there should be a September batch out there too. So I don't know if anyone got that batch, but most of them are probably still the August.
I've got the September batch.
Oh, you are special.
Yeah, I am. I'm getting toffee right at the very end of it. Wow.
Nice.
So tell me, what do you see that's new and exciting going on in the craft beer industry right now?
I think the thing that's most exciting to me, and we're starting to work on this too, is actually venturing into the world of non-alcoholic beers. So that's kind of I've started to see a bunch of these craft pop up, and we're working on it as well. And I'm hoping to get something out there relatively soon. And yeah, it's just, I mean, I'm a beer lover. I love beer with alcohol. but I also, I'm getting a little older, and it's nice to be able to, like, from my perspective, it'll be like enjoy one or two with alcohol, and then if we're still socializing, whatever, then switch to a good non-alcoholic, right? That still tastes like beer, but you're not going to feel like garbage the next day. So that's kind of where I see the market's going to move. There's been some good ones come out. I think one of the best ones I've tried is from Quebec. What's it called? Le Bloquette or something. So yeah, I just feel like they're getting better. Like traditionally they've been really bad. But I've tried a few lately that have really improved, and yeah, I have no intention of ever not, stopping to drink alcohol, but I think I want to have some options for other things, right? So that's where I'm excited for that, and to make I think an IPA, as an IPA drinker, like to make a really good non-alcoholic one would be the challenge that I want to work towards. So, and I think we kind of touched on it already, but I think there'll be a swing back as well towards lower alcohol, more sessionable beers. There's always going to be a place for the big ones, because you just can't get the flavor characteristics from like an imperial stout that you can in a low alcohol, but like they'll have their place. But I think we need to move a bit more to the balance side, and yeah, and actually claim those beers as exciting, because sometimes it's like, I don't know, there's something about IPA, I'm going to wax philosophical here, but about chasing the hop that almost justifies you trying every different IPA that's out there, because you're always like searching for that great IPA. This is maybe a personal testimonial, but so I don't know, it's okay to just drink pale ales and lagers too, right? So anyway, I see that trend kind of moving back towards that. I've seen a lot of breweries moving that way, and just talking to them, like I think that's what a lot of brewers want to drink too, and I think we're the ones that are driving the market, and we put out what we enjoy drinking, and for the most part people support that. So anyway.
Yeah. No, I'm listening to you, but I'm following the chat.
I can't do both.
No. And it just, this whole discussion has raised this firestorm over here.
Oh, I see. Yes.
Yeah. And I'm not the least bit surprised by Derek trying to get drunk in Iceland on low ABV beers.
The bars were all closed. It was a holiday.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like the other argument is your body can probably process the alcohol quick enough that you just can't drink non-alcoholic beer fast enough, right? It's just impossible. So, well, and actually the funny thing is, if you measure most juices and that have a very small amount of alcohol in them, if you were to measure it, like it'll be 0.3 or something. And so yeah, anyway, that's a whole other discussion, but
that is a whole other discussion, but yeah.
I'm thinking more of the people that are afraid of alcohol, but they don't realize they're drinking it all the time.
Remind me next time you and I have a chat, I'll tell you the story about the brandied prunes that one of my female friends got into, who was did not drink.
And they felt so good.
She ate the whole bowl.
Oh wow!
And it was entertaining.
And you're right. I remember learning this in high school biology, like that it is like you can become intoxicated off water. Like it's virtually impossible, because you have to really drink a lot of it, but it is technically, you're basically just expanding your blood vessels, which is that feeling when you're drunk of feeling good, because you've expanded the blood vessels with the alcohol. Anyway, or sleep deprivation, it pretty much feels the same. Yeah.
That's very true. Sleep deprivation feels the same. Tell me, what's next for Marvin?
So I think the big thing for me, so with kind of before COVID, we had Dave move on to Alora, who I think you've had on before, Dave Sainer,
Yep.
great brewer. He was my head brewer for quite some time, and it was great. I mean, he wanted to kind of be a little bit more in charge and run a brewery. So we're great friends. I saw him a couple times this week, actually. And so all the best to him. But I mean, that kind of left a bit of a void. I kind of stepped back more into that role than I had. But we didn't really hire anyone to replace him. And then it was like, you know, COVID hit. So everything just ground to a halt and like, okay, no hirings, nothing. Like there were some layoffs and it was just crazy. So I think what's next in store. So I've been doing a lot of like stuff in the back, which I've really enjoyed. Actually, it's more back to my roots and basically covering vacations for everyone from, you know, our yeast management person to the lab person to brewers. So I've really got to go back and like redo a lot of these jobs, which is great because it gives me an appreciation for what people do. But it also makes me realize that I also have management type things I need to do. And that's kind of gets left by the wayside then. So that's kind of what's next is to try to, we're going to shift around some roles a bit of people that are in-house and probably like hire another brewer. So that'll free up my time a bit more for the creative side. And like I said, I really want to focus on the non-alcoholic. I just see that market is growing. It's already at somewhere around 14% in Germany. In Europe, it's huge. So it's just going to need a lot of my time. And because again, I want to do it well, and I know there's a challenge there because it's the alcohol really provides a lot. That the mouthfeel, there's a sweetness that comes with the alcohol that you don't really realize, and it just really rounds out the whole beer. So you take something that was a natural process, you strip something out of it, it's not going to be the same. So how do I do this? So it's going to be a big challenge, but I'm excited for it. So yeah, that's what's next.
That's great. And, you know, glad to hear that. You know, COVID has forced all of us to change what we do and how we do things. You've taken it one step further going, oh, yeah, this is reminding me of the things I love.
Yeah.
Now I'm going this way. So I'm excited to see what creative things happen now.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like we were chatting last night a bit about it. Like it's I would say probably everyone had to pivot in some way, shape, or form, and some like you completely take on new roles and new responsibilities, and it's a complete change. Mine was in a sense a reversal, and in the fact that I went back to doing a bunch of stuff, but it was also new because as we expanded, and I also like moved up in management. I didn't do those things. So it was like, I know the theory behind how to do everything, but I may not necessarily have done it with the new equipment that we have, if that makes sense. So it's like, I'm going back to doing the thing, but in a new way. So it's, so yeah, it was kind of an interesting journey that way. And it really, I think it helped kind of get through it and process stuff as well. So redefine.
Good way to put it, redefine.
Are we ready for the last one yet?
That's what I was just going to do. We're going to do the dry hop sour with blueberry and pear.
Okay, this one was fun because I got to partner with Nickelbrook. So they're an interesting brewery. They've been around for a very long time as well. Very well known for their IPAs, Headstock, Naughty Neighbor, very old brands that have been around, great beers. But yeah, then they really went the direction of sours and funk as well, and converted their entire Burlington facility into a funk lab, as they call it. And they really kind of pioneered and perfected a lot. I mean, I still remember having raspberry uber, and that just kind of like changed my, I mean, I'd had other sour beers, but to have one that's readily accessible in Ontario, brewed very locally, that's delicious, like it was a real game changer. So I got to chat with Ben for a bit. So a lot of this was his idea, because it's like they've tried every fruited version, and he's like, okay, well, let's try to put two fruits together with a really unique hop. So the blueberry and pear went into it, and then the hop I'm really excited about is it's called Barber Rouge. So as you might imagine by the name, it's a French hop. So France is not well known for its hop growing, but they actually grow a fair number of hops and do it well, and have been doing it for a very long time. So there's a whole bunch. I'm experimenting with another couple of varieties as well. I've made some other small batch stuff with French hops, and they're very good. They have their own sort of terroir, because their growing region is different than it would be in Germany and Czechoslovakia, where they also grow a lot of hops. And the unique part of the Barber Rouge is that it's really supposed to impart strawberry and melon type flavors. So this is where it's going to get tricky to kind of detect, because there's a lot going on in this beer, right? You've got the blueberry, you've got the pear, and then you've got this unique hop that also provides something. So also the color turned out like just gorgeous. So
That is such a unique aroma.
you really get the strawberry though, right? And there are no strawberries in this beer. Like
Yeah.
it mystifies me. It's like those strawberry candies with the soft center.
Derek calls it fruit math. Shiraz is holy cow, it's good.
I'm just saying that those hops you're needed.
Oh.
Fruit math. I love that.
Yep. You see, and I really liked the funk with the blueberry on the front aroma.
And blueberries always been a tricky one. I've done a few different blueberry beers, but most people think of blueberry as like blueberry flavoring, that really intense, which is not what you typically actually get from blueberries, but we're so used to things flavored that it's really pretty much impossible to get that in a beer without using flavoring. So there are beers that do it, like one of the most famous is the Pump House one from New Brunswick. I think it's a blueberry wheat. It's been in the LCBO a couple times. It's great, but the best version actually is if you're out there. I don't know if they do this anymore, but I was out there 4 or 5 years ago, and when they serve it with actual blueberries in the beer. So they just be at the bar, they'll have like a thing of blueberries, just throw them in your glass. And I don't know if anyone's done that just for fun. You can do it with any beer, really, probably a lighter one like a lager or something. They just absorb like the carbonation, and they're just like little delicious like blueberry nuggets. Really good. If you're ever in that fruity mood, so.
Yeah, I hear you on that. Graham wanted to know, we're going to go back a little bit to you talking about, he wanted to know if you would call what you were doing cross-training your teams.
Yes. Yeah, in a sense, we didn't get them necessarily working other jobs. We've started doing that a little bit more, because we actually got some feedback from people that they were interested in other things, and you always want to encourage that. But yeah, it's amazing for me to step in, because like as somebody that hasn't done a job for a while, like you can quickly identify, okay, I'm missing something here because this is way more difficult. So then I talk to the person when they're back, and I'm like, okay, how do you actually do this? Because I did it this way and it was way more difficult than it should have been, or you find an easier way to do something and then you share that with the person. So it's yeah, like we have SOPs for everything, but like SOPs, any good SOP should be updated often, and you have to revisit stuff. So but great question.
Yeah. Chirag says that the fruit forward beers people are doing remind him more of sangria.
Well, there is this thing, I've had this discussion with people before. Like I love fruited beers, but like, what's your goal with it? Do you want to make a beer that doesn't really taste like a beer and kind of hits that for people, or do you want it to straddle that? Do you want it to be more beer than fruit? I don't know what the right answer is, but they all have their place. It just kind of matters. Like I have a Fruity in my fridge down here right now, and probably because it inspired me like 10 years ago to be like, wow, this is you call this a beer, but it's like, it's kind of a cool thing to think about, and it's very sweet, but it's also I've tried to like clone it, but it's a really tricky beer to make like they do it. So yeah, I respect things like that, but I also respect beer that tastes like a beer but kind of uses the fruit to bring out some hops, or to like accentuate something else, or to really just become part of an overall really balanced beer.
So Marvin, if you could travel back in time, what advice would you give your younger self?
I would say make an IPA like right away. It's what I should have done. I should have pushed harder on that. And I mean, I see what this is probably coming at it from the business pragmatic point of view, and becoming a super successful brewery, but we really should have got on the IPA train a lot earlier than we did. And that's what I would tell my earlier self. I would say, don't give up on that. Keep pushing that dream. Brew some pilot batches at home, create a product, and take it and sell it to ownership, kind of thing, right? So that's what I would say. And I would have a beer with my younger self too while I was at it.
Here, try a really well-made IPA.
Let this inspire you.
Yeah, yeah. So Mike points out an interesting fact that adding fruit to a beer is a really, really tricky thing to do, because it doesn't always end up tasting like the fruit that you've added.
Very true.
Yeah, yeah. Can ask Rob at Shortfinger about adding chocolate nibs too.
Oh, there's issues adding anything to beer. I've had, you have to make sure the fruit ferments as well. We don't have the benefit, like, so something like Fruity, where you can actually pasteurize, so you can have sugar in your final product, and as long as you run it through a pasteurizer, it's okay. But there's very few craft breweries that own pasteurizers, so we have to make sure the beer is very stable when we package it.
Yeah, that's true. It's very true. So what would you like everyone to take away from our talk today?
I think just that good beer is good beer, and keep supporting the balanced like older beers that maybe have gone out of favor, but don't forget about those ones that kind of got us to where we are, and give them some love every once in a while, but also enjoy the new ones, and look out for some good non-alcoholic, because that I think that's going to be the future, and I'm excited to share that with people. So that could be my next my goal to get back on your show, is to actually have something we can share with everyone, and that'll get me back on here.
Oh, I will have you back again sometime. I'm not concerned about that.
I know.
Jen's asking the ultimate important question. When you're not drinking beer at Wellies, who's your favorite craft brewery?
Oh, that's a really tough.
There are so many good ones out there, isn't there?
There really are. The one I'll just say who I was thinking about today, and I'm gonna go there. I love Great Lakes, yeah, but I think I'm gonna head there on Friday. Is Fairweather in Hamilton. They're actually one of my favorite breweries. The other one, I don't get enough of their beer, and it's probably because it's too close. So it's like, you know, the ones that are too close that you're like, oh, I can always go there. Is Counterpoint in Kitchener there. Like everything I've had from them has been absolutely phenomenal. And I just like, it feels like it's so close. I think their hours are a little less too. So it's like, I really should just make a point of driving down there. So, but they're the two that come to mind right now. But like you said, there's so many good ones out there. I don't want to offend anyone.
Well, Graham Counterpoint's going to be on 22nd of December. He's doing the Christmas show with me this year.
Cool.
Yep. Yep. So we're hitting the top of the hour, so I'm going to stop recording, but I got to do the plug first. Next week, this is my grandson and my granddaughter's favorite Halloween toy that I have. Is our Halloween show. Keith Carmen is joining me. Please make sure you take a look at the banner when David puts it up, because I have a great picture of Keith. He doesn't know I'm using that picture, but I have a great picture of Keith. And we're doing pumpkin ales next week's show. So, and Lake of Bays, St. Amboise, Flying Monkeys Paranormal, and the one that I'm looking for, Tales from the Patch Pumpkin Porter from Big Rig. So that's the next week's show. Marvin, thank you for being such a wonderful guest and talking to us about the Rising Tide collaboration beers that you've done. It's always a pleasure to have you on the show.
Thank you.